Hello, friends, and hello, Jeannie. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you.
And I should be saying a welcome back to myself. I'm coming back from a long break and really feeling excited for the conversation, something I've really missed. And I notice when I don't have conversations with people like you at this level, something's definitely missing. And so I've been looking forward to this for some time. And I'm always curious to hear the topic, and we usually just find out what that's going to be when we open the space. And today we decided to talk about containers, and I'd love to hear your perspective on that, why it's in your awareness now, and how you're applying it to your community.
Okay. Well, um, so first I'm going to explain my hands.
Yeah, please. I had to ask
I've
the.
been making tincture out of the black walnuts in my yard, tincture and liqueur, just experimenting to do something with them, but people have made ink out of them, black ink, and so this is what they do to your hands when you're processing them. So I look like a bog witch, and that'll be good, but I wanted to let people know in case they thought that, whatever.
You've been
Um,
down to the state, this, what do they call it? The station getting fingerprinted.
That's right. No, this is just what your hands look like after you've been down to the bottom of the underworld
Well,
and
that's
back.
mine should be looking like that. All
Uh,
right.
okay, so container, I'm going to see if I can define it. So nature, like here we are, formless awareness, no shape, no, just we're spacious spirit, right? And then at the level of the manifest world, things take shape. And some of the shapes are, some of the shapes contain shapes like wombs or nests or eggs. And the shape that they take, and this is what nature does, it optimizes the shape. The shape that it takes is to serve the purpose. So a nest looks different than an egg, looks different than a womb. Um, we could even say that our skull is a container for our brain, and our heart is a container for certain blood to move through. But generally, when we think about a container, it can be somewhat like a cup, where like you could imagine an open cup. If you heated it up, the steam comes out. If it's a jar that you close and you heat it up, woo. And we see in chemistry, different reactions happen in contained spaces, and things, transformation happens in contained spaces, like a baby is built in a womb.
Right.
And uh, this is one of my favorites because it's such a great metaphor for transformation. When the little caterpillar builds its cocoon, it weaves the cocoon and then it liquefies, it literally digests itself
Mhm.
and builds a butterfly in there. We should say life energy does, or the mystery of, how can we ever understand all this, right? But that cocoon is perfect because if there was no cocoon, the caterpillar would still need to be looking around to see what was going to eat it. It wouldn't be able to liquefy and transform without that shelter. And sometimes without the temperature. For example, a womb has a certain temperature. And I'm trying to think of some good analogies of things where the heat is brought up and then the pressure inside the container causes chemical changes or alchemical changes. So I've been fascinated by this. I think I learned about this. I mean, if we just bar like past lives where, we could have been doing all kinds of things, if we just look at this life, the things that I have been involved in, studying for a master's degree in counseling. I did something called co-counseling. And now here I am offering a certain kind of spiritual work. I started to think about uh, how you set up one of these kind of energetic containers has everything to do with whether you meet the purpose that you're setting out to do. So if we design a very bad nest with a hole in the bottom, then when the bird sits on the nest, the egg falls out, the egg cracks, and we're not doing what the nest is designed to do, which is keep the egg safe and dry and perfectly formed for the mama bird to sit and warm them for a certain amount of time, and there's a bird, right? This is this is also when for some reason I'm tuned as a teacher, as a spiritual teacher, to work with containment because containment really serves transformation. So if, let me see how to say this. If you, a therapist has a container, they have the room, they have the rules, you pay, um, there's a beginning, there's an end, there's certain guidelines, there's a purpose about what you're doing. If a therapist has their room in the middle of a construction zone, if the door isn't locked and their dog keeps busting in, this is like a physical container, but there's also energetic containers that are made of agreements. So the therapist agrees to the therapist is a big part of the container. They're what we call holding the space, right? So they are making sure it's quiet, making sure it's private, making sure that their role is to serve that person's healing. And there's lots of kinds of therapy with lots of kinds of goals, but generally that role and the degree to which the therapist can really be an agent of the healing, the the container serves that end. There are things in the energetic container. Let's say a therapist has a lot of integrity, and so the person learns to trust the therapist's integrity. That's part of the container. Every time that I say, hey, that didn't work for me, and the therapist treats me kindly, listens to me, um, owns their stuff or whatever, or says, oh, I made a mistake, our trust grows in the container of that therapy. And we've all seen how, for example, um, certain kind of professional containers have guidelines for them. There's lots of, when you get licensed as a therapist, you generally have to take an ethics class. You have to agree to certain things, like not socializing with your clients. That's a kind of container. What is our relationship? What are the guidelines of our relationship? We only meet in this therapy room. We don't then go have a beer later. I don't get to know your children necessarily. And, people have all kinds of things they do. And the more conscious the container, because sometimes there's like implicit, unspoken parts of the container. Let's say a therapist has a problem with being late. Well, it's not part of the stated container. The stated container is I get the hour from 4 to 5, but they keep being late. There's an unconscious, unexpressed part of the container that, till expressed, is kind of shady. It's underground. There's
Compromising.
yeah, it's so
Um,
there's so much to this,
yeah.
and my implicit study of it, creating the containers I create for what I do in my work, I was kind of doing it by instinct. And now I'm at the point where I'm really, really bringing this conscious and being able to teach about it because container affects relationship. Every relationship we have
Mhm.
has a container. Every enterprise we enter into has a container. So I'm going to pause for a second, just see like what sort of thoughts you're having, because we could take this in so many different directions.
Yeah. Well, thank you for opening the door. I'm excited and enticed by the conversation because we'll first go way back to when you said you're trying to think of a good example for when things heat up in a
Yeah.
particular container. I just thought about an oven and baking because I've heard some people say the distinction between cooking and baking is very different. Baking is more of a science, which is like an alchemy, right? And there's a certain thing that happens in the transformation of baked goods. As they are baked, they rise and expand, right? And in that right ingredient mixture and container, that all the right elements have to be there or it falls, right?
Yeah,
Flat.
good one. Good one.
Okay. All right. So we're on to it. I'm tracking
I
it.
just have like four more thoughts. Please continue though.
Okay.
Do you have more?
One more thing. When you're speaking about the container, the strong word that comes in for me is that every container has a function,
Yes.
and it's the
Yeah,
function that we're in service to. And so we want to be clear about what is the function of this container,
exactly.
and that we look for the outcome of that in the results, right? That it's
Right.
serving the
Right. Is it
function.
doing it? Is it doing it? Is my oven baking my cake properly?
Yeah.
I had like nine different thoughts when you were talking. I was like, oh my God, a forge where you have to heat the steel to a
Uh-huh.
certain level and the impurities are
Mm-hmm.
baked out. Pressurized carbon that turns carbon into a diamond. And
Mm-hmm.
then I thought, oh, heating up a metal like gold to burn out the impurities to purify. So there's so much, you can't heat something or bring it to pressure unless it's in a container. And the other piece, I call it the function, like the purpose, the purpose, the function. It's like, what is this thing going to do? Like if we're gathering from 7 to 9 at someone's house, already we have bits of the container. 7 to 9, there's the house, and everything about the house figures into the container. And then what are we going to do? What are we doing there? And why are we doing it? Is it a Tupperware party? We're just all coming together to buy a little Tupperware and maybe socialize a bit and have some snacks and it'll be fun. Are we getting together to um, discuss books? Are we getting together to socialize, or are we getting together to be together in a more impersonal way, such as a therapy group? You're not going to go call everybody in your group and go have a beer with them. It's like we're meeting as mutual supporters in a healing container, even though all these things might be 7 to 9 at that person's house. It's like everything about that thing starts to build the container. I'm going to pause again. I don't, I could just yabber on and on, but I wanted to have this
Yeah.
back and forth
Well,
because you add so many pieces that then, we build on each other, we cross-pollinate.
yeah, I'm thank you for acknowledging that and inviting me to share, because, of course, I have lots pinging for me, just as you do when I speak. Um, so let me pick one. um, I'm always looking at nature as for examples, right? And within our own body, we have nature and the form of our internal organs, and each of our internal organs have a function. And in order for them to function the way they're designed to function, they need to be given the right conditions and environment.
Yeah, yeah, right,
And then the
exactly.
whole body and system has a function. And in order for it to function as the instrument for, you might call it consciousness or the divine, whatever, the creative intelligence, it has to be functioning at a certain level where all the functions of the body are in harmony. So when you talk about a container with multiple
Mm.
parts
Hmm.
functioning together, we are a walking embodiment of that. And what we're doing when we create a communal setting for that is what do you call it? Not just expanding it, but I can't think of the word. But anyway, extending that out into a larger field so that consciousness has a bigger container to reveal itself through. And when it reveals itself, It's like things can happen in that container that can't happen when we're on our own.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. So here's something that I work with a lot that I'm fascinated by is how making a commitment creates a container,
Mhm.
particularly if you keep the commitment or you have support to keep the commitment. So it can just be a container to say every morning at 5 in the morning, I'm going to do 10 sun salutations. I commit to that. There's a container, there's a time, there's a thing, and then we get to meet things in ourselves. We wouldn't meet if we were just not building a container and doing it whenever we felt like it. The commitment holds us to a certain containment. If we do that with other people, like a marriage, we commit to this. If I commit to this thing with you, then if I show up and we do it,
Mhm.
then whatever might get in the way might live in my unconscious that would get in the way of me showing up and doing what I set out to do will rise to be met as I keep
Right.
the commitment. So there's a fire. If we and a few of our friends ended up on a refugee boat out in the middle of the ocean with no food, it would be an amazing container to see just how spiritual we are. Because the heat, the challenge of the situation brings certain things to the fore. And some of that containment, like the dark night of the soul, is it's a certain containment. You're held, you're pinned, right? And then these things come up. Some of us, and particularly when we've grown to trust the function of limitation, we might look for places that will push us so that we can grow. I remember when my daughter was little, she said, I want some adventures. Um, so, and I want to like toughen up a little bit. And there were some things that happened that made her want to toughen up a little bit. So I said, well, what kind of adventure? And she said, I want to be sent to a place where people eat normal food. We were organic and we didn't eat a whole lot of sugar or fast food, or where people eat normal food, where they don't know about crying, that crying is good, where they're just kind of normal. I want to go there and learn some things. And she went to a summer camp in the middle of Missouri, um, with not the groovy, hippie, organic people she was used to being around. Um, and that pressure, that container, her commitment. She was there. She flew there by herself. She got off. She did the thing. There was a certain pressure that helped her to learn a little bit and to be pushed. And so sometimes we can feel our heart go, oh, there's that trip, there's that retreat, there's that program, there's that thing. But if I say yes to it, ooh, yikes, that might be scary to go to a new retreat or something where I have to pay and I don't get my money back and, whatever. But the container, when you get in it, then if it's well held, you get pushed. There's like enough support, right? Enough whatever you need, but the containment pushes pushes and creates a kind of a fire that makes things come up that you can then digest in yourself that wouldn't come up unless you were, for example, in an intimate relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes me think of a kind of a cheesy example of that.
I love that.
A TV show called Wife Swap. Did you ever see it?
No,
Oh gosh.
I haven't even ever heard of it.
I don't know
S-
if it's even still on,
Sounds
but they
sounds racy.
it's like they take like a wife from two different, very different families, and they would live in the opposite home for a week. And of course, it was about drama. So they wanted to take the most extreme differences,
Oh my God.
and they would do, and it was just, like you said, just like throwing someone in the fire where the conditions of that container were so different than everything they valued, everything they knew, and so unfamiliar, so disorienting. And they're being filmed. So
Wow.
it was ugly. Yeah, it
Well,
was.
and the ugliness, this is what's so interesting to me. Like, um, so there's kind of like this psychological containment. It doesn't have to have any kind of spiritual energy or spiritual teaching at all. It can be voluntary or involuntary, a marriage, or just your car broke down somewhere with three friends in the snow and you can't get out of the car. It's like an involuntary container. Um, but when there's when it involves spiritual energy, which, any of us who have been students of someone who has a lot of presence, who's open to who and what they are, whatever, all that good stuff. We can feel the energy moving and rolling, and the energy, even just sitting in the energy, has a transformative quality. We can we find ourselves opening, or I can remember one teacher who I had an interaction with. And then I drove home and this ancient grief rose in me that I had no idea. It was super powerful that had come from being in contact with what he was in contact with, right? And so when you combine spiritual energy with containment, the possibility of transformation goes up to the degree that the container is safe, safe, right? There are some spiritual teachers where, it might be frightening to be in a container with them, might not feel so safe, but you're ready to be challenged or whatever. But it's it has an integrity. It's serving a divine purpose of opening and awakening and transformation, not somebody's ego.
Right.
And then the containment actually serves something beautiful. But what I notice is choice or no choice, choicefulness can make a huge difference. If we run into something involuntary, a dark night of the soul, car accident in the snow, we can feel like a big victim. We didn't choose it. Oh, woe is me, and this sucks. And we're same with if you ended up in some kind of spiritual retreat and you went just because your partner wanted you to go, but you didn't really want to be there. It could the friction, the pressure could feel awful, like you were a victim of it, versus choicefully saying, I want this discomfort or I want this commitment so that I can see things in myself, so that I can transform. And it's amazing to me how kind of that willing choicefulness, the feeling that the purpose touches my heart, this is a purpose I can get behind, ends up really so serving. It's part of the container. If you have five people who have all chosen to be there, they know they want to be there. It's really different than five people are like, meh.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So the people who attend something, whether it's the car breaking down or the refugee boat or the spiritual event, how choiceful and conscious the people are
Yeah,
of turning toward the thing as a potential gift makes a huge difference.
definitely. Yeah, I can feel it. Like, um, I hold a container a few times a week in the form of a qigong class, and we always come together in a circle. And sometimes people will bring their children, or like their teenagers, like, or their spouses, or someone they deem needs it. And the other person isn't necessarily on board, but they're begrudgingly showing up. I can totally feel that energy in the field of their
Yes,
resistance.
exactly.
It's harder to get that um, flow cooking when that resistance is there. But it also poses a good challenge for me as the driver of the container, if you will, um, to um, integrate it and use it as, use the resistance in a way that empowers the movement instead of defeats it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
That,
sometimes it's just the way you change the language and word it, and you shift their resistance into curiosity by redirecting their attention away from their resistance and into looking for evidence of things that are already there, but they're not aware of. And then they turn their attention to it and they notice it. And then it's like, oh, wow, there's something to this.
yeah, there
And
might be
then
something for me here.
and then the whole field gets like this boost when that resistance is there and it's holding, pulling back, and then it lets go. The whole thing goes,
Yes.
yeah.
Isn't it amazing? Like we can really talk about physical containers. And we can all get that. We can all get what it would be like to be broken down in a snowstorm with three friends, snowed in, not be able to get out of the car. We can totally get that. And prior to being jacked open like I was 20 whatever years ago, I remember I went to Naropa and one of my teachers said, well, you feel energy, don't you? I was like, no, I don't even know what that is. And now, like, everything is energy. And what you're describing is something that is very difficult to explain if someone's not open to energy. That I have a container that when you said multiple containers in the body, it's like, oh my gosh, I have multiple courses. Each course has multiple groups. There's private sessions going on. I'm giving private sessions. I'm teaching. There's all these, there's partner practice mentors. There's partner practice going on. All these little mini containers that are held and involve the energy of the psyche. It's a huge undertaking. If I'm not clear, if I don't have a really clear container, that thing can go south real quickly. But that whole thing, it's hard to describe to someone. I hold that container in my body,
Mm-hmm.
in my energetic body. The container is my energetic body in a way,
Totally.
right? And so if something funny is happening with the container, it's almost like, ooh, like we that needs addressing. And you can feel it in your body when something needs adjustment because you can feel, as you say, the energy rocking and rolling and expanding, or the energy going clog, clog, clog.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally get it. I remember when I first was young at creating community containers, I was attracting a certain, um, let's say, quality of people. And my body was showing signs of breaking down. And I didn't realize it until later in hindsight that it was the pressure of the container and that the um, neediness of the people that I was
Yeah,
attracting based on my offer
yeah,
was the issue. And then I reoriented and started creating a different container with a different function at a higher level where it required people that wanted to empower themselves rather than be victims and seek empowerment, but more,
yeah.
there was just a different shift in that. People that would take responsibility for their own health and come to learn the tools and apply them, but not to come have it done to them.
Right, right. This is so, well, I don't want to interrupt you. Finish your
Yeah,
sentence.
that's
I just get
basically
really
it. It was,
excited.
that's basically it. It was just now that the container that I hold doesn't take a toll on my physical body in the same way. I mean, it does take energy to show up and do what I do to keep it going like you do, but it's more exciting and rewarding than it is exhausting because the quality of the people and their intention for showing up
Yeah.
is so different and that energy is so different that it's yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I had this kind of revelation as so I do small groups in my work, and um, I have people I mentor to hold a really simple share space where people share for even amounts of time. And there's no one in most of the groups, there's no one actually facilitating anyone's process. It's a lot like a talking staff. So 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And at some point, the facilitators get to feel what it's like to hold a space. And some of them have before and some of them haven't, which is really different than being just a member of a space.
Mhm.
And once you've held a space, you know what it's like to hold a space. And then when you go to other spaces, you are aware that if you everything you neglect about being mature, if you whine, if you are late, if you criticize, if you whatever, that takes a toll on the whole and on the person holding the space. When there's six people who get what holding the space is like, and so they are all fully, maturely taking responsibility for their piece, even if one person has the role to start the Zoom.
Mhm.
One person has the role to remind people of the guidelines or whatever. When there's that many people hold, knowing the guidelines, knowing the purpose, following through, standing up, the leader, the facilitator ends up, and this is if you're not teaching, right? Because teaching has a certain, output. But I started to see, I believe this is what they meant by the Holy Grail, by the round table, by the way that energy is held so beautifully in a community of beings who are all equally willing to follow. If you have to spell out the guide, I mean, we have to spell out the guidelines sometimes so we can follow them. But if everyone has kind of integrity, responsibility, respect for each other, there ends up being these 6, 8, 12, whatever pillars holding something super beautiful where the false can't live
Mhm.
because the false doesn't get to act out on the container, kicking it in the shins, being a victim, everybody holding their piece of it's like my daughter. I went to a birthday party of my one of my daughter's students. She's working in a preschool right now. And all the kids were, and a few adults were holding up a parachute, real colorful parachute. It's like we need everyone on the parachute to hold their edge, or if someone's in the parachute jumping, they're going to fall. And so when you talk about a container that is holding space for people's process, it's so amazing to have six people, eight people, 12 people, whatever, equally mature, equally looking out for the guidelines, no victims, um, just everyone kind of filling out their mature humanness. Amazing things happen. I'm sure you felt that when you've been with certain friends or collaborated where there's just a sense that nobody's fighting this, everyone's pulling their weight, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. There's um, an energy. I'll just call it a muse that I recognize that um, enters the space um, when there's a consistency. When that container, you
Mm,
come together in your weekly circle. It's there's a memory in that field that becomes just like we have a memory of being in this body and having these experiences as we create. And we have in our community created a consistent practice every week for over 7 years. And so it's generated a memory in the field.
yes,
And,
yes.
and this field has its own kind of higher self, if you will.
Yeah,
Um, So it recognizes the people and the people recognize it. And so when we come together, we don't have to start from scratch. And
right.
right, it's already set,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
a recipe, right?
Right.
You've got
Yes.
it, once you got it dialed in, you write it down. So you just follow that recipe and then it comes out the same every time with maybe some surprises if you have some different ingredients at different seasons that are fresh and new. And um, so, yeah, just wanting to say that beyond the obvious and the physical aspects of the container, the energy of it becomes something that we call in the gene keys a synarchy.
Oh, interesting. Synarchy. That's a beautiful term.
Yeah. And it could be translated as a many-armed avatar.
Oh, beautiful.
So it's the consciousness of intelligence, that's the combined intelligence of everyone in the group, using everyone in the group as a unique perspective on its point of view. And that's
Yeah.
how we get to know the bigger picture of what we're containing and contained by, is each person sharing their experience of what they see, feel, and notice in the container.
Yeah. Yeah. The that one flew out of my head. That one flew out of my head. Um, the one of the things I've noticed just in terms of holding a container, and we just did a course together, an 8-month course called Giving Your Gift. And the people in the course, many of them are space holders, and we did a lot of talking. We had a whole month on container and giving your gift, and what's the container for your work? Like, what do you charge, and where do you do it, and all these kind of things. And one of the things I've really, really noticed, there's some kind of magic combination of, how do I say this? Let me back up for a second. Containers to me can be living or dead and crusty. We have some very dead containers in our culture,
Mm,
right? And um, it takes a lot of consciousness, a lot of awareness, a lot of people caring about a container to keep it living. And by living, I mean that someone's consciousness, preferably someone who's clear and clean and gets the purpose, is moving around all of the particulars of the container, saying, does this still fit or does it not? Um, is this the right place to do this? Are these the right hours to do this? Is the screening for who gets to participate too tight, too loose, etc.? And you can see every single thing that is funny or exhausting or challenging can be traced back to, is there something I can change about this container so that that particular thing, we have that covered. And I do a lot of very explicitly describing my containers so that as people come in, they're very clear about what it is and what it isn't. And
mm,
if they don't read and they do something that's sort of like not within the guidelines, someone will lovingly remind them.
mm.
And we use that. It's like a way to become conscious, to be part of a container that involves other people.
Right.
Now, I'm completely unconscious about how, for example, I'm not a late person, but let's say I'm late, and the people in my life don't give me feedback because they're afraid to give me feedback, and I'm careening around the world, not realizing the impact of my lateness.
Mm,
But now I'm in a tight container where we start on the dot, and I come clattering in at 7 minutes after, and it's pretty hard not to notice that there's my other 7 people are settled, are sitting, are in silence, are meditating. And me clattering in, the facilitator had to pull her attention out of meditation and let me in. And then we all had to endure the sounds as you didn't mute your microphone. And there's this. It's not about who's bad or are you bad. It's about, wow, can you become conscious of your embodiment, of
Right.
your habits, of your impact
Mhm.
as a way to grow in your capacity to be an extender, a vehicle of integrity, of high energies, etc. So a container in the right hands, its livingness makes it appropriate, makes it alive, makes it not a dead thing we do just because. Every piece of it's thought about and run through that kind of feeler of the space holders, but also it becomes a tool for a mirror, a mirror for seeing ourselves and seeing our impact and growing up and healing things if we, if we have a place where we're constantly making our group facilitator into our bad mom and we feel oppressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's that possibility of seeing that we're doing that
Mhm.
and owning and healing and feeling into whatever that is. So there's a very cool, if the container is actually born of love, of heart, of spiritual energy, it can be a remarkable ally. And most containers are dead. Most containers have a lot of ego in them. Most containers aren't being tended in that way, or the people who are holding them or creating them weren't of very high consciousness. And a lot of us have a lot of owies around containment. Our containers, like our families, have been too strict, too mean. The people at the helm haven't had our best interests in mind. Like right now, the space holders for our government are not exactly like rolling in a way that we all can get behind, or rolling from the highest, integrity.
Yeah.
So all of that goes into what is this container I'm entering into in my life? What am I being invited to be in? Does it serve a purpose? Does it fit? Can I trust it? What are all the pieces of it? What are the guidelines? What's expected of me? Can I fulfill that or not? This is to me like a real growing into a world citizen in a way, to really grow into being one of those mature ones that doesn't just go asleep at the wheel and treat the leader like they're the meanie and, kick the container when we're mad, but take responsibility and say, hey, you know, that didn't work so well for me, or whatever adults do when adults are part of a container versus when we're in our little child places.
Mm. Yeah, I like what you said about some of the structures and containment of our culture aren't serving the function they were originally designed for. And so we're watching them crumble and we're watching the um, corruption of them become visible, right?
Yeah.
Like where it can't be hidden anymore because the the yin force of destruction will have its way with replacing what's no longer serving the function.
Bwahaha.
the next the next expression of that container for serving, we could call it a higher purpose. It's not higher or lower, but a more expanded purpose of unification and
Yeah.
inclusion. Hmm?
Yeah. I mean, we could say that serving love versus serving me, and how much money I have in my bank, whether we say high and low, or we say more conscious, less conscious, or more in touch with the godly or whatever. There is definitely, right, a difference between a container held by, a human being who is a selfless servant of the holy and the people than a container that's run by someone who's just out to see how much they can get out of people, or even worse, someone who gets their jollies out of having power over other people, or
Mhm.
thinks they're better than other people, and therefore all the people with lots of money or purple eyes get all the stuff and the other ones don't. There's just so many ways that are shadow material.
Yeah.
leaks into the container that we hold.
And, I think we have not been educated as a culture of the invisible influences in our reality. And it sounds esoteric, but it's really not. It's like there are things like oxygen and gravity that are invisible to us, but they
Mhm.
are very much a part of what keeps us tethered to the earth and alive. So they're essential things that we don't see and we take for granted. And then there are some other things that are invisible that are detrimental forces, like parasitic forces and predatory forces that operate in the culture through social media and so forth, and the programming that happens. And so, if we're not becoming aware of these things, um, we don't know when we're in a container that
Mm,
is corrupt because
mm.
it's become so normal.
Yeah, this is part of why I feel like people coming back to their senses,
Mm-hmm.
like you know how my work has so much inclusion of the creature of the body
Mm-hmm.
and the felt wisdom and all these kinds of things. And we these things have evolved over the years to be so savvy
Yeah,
about what's coming at them.
right.
But in our conditioning, we're taught to not pay attention to that, to override that. Oh no, mommy really isn't crazy. It's just that you're bad or whatever. And we learn to doubt those things. Coming back to our senses and sense making allows us to feel the imprint of something rotten in Denmark registers in our body. We can hear it in the voice. We can feel it in, and it at minimum is dissonant. At maximum, actually hurts,
Mhm.
and that information is something that then allows us to come come to, I don't know how many I can just say, like in my own life, certain relationships or places or functions or relation, like ways of being that I had, that I was nowhere near the actuality of because I wasn't in my body. I was in a fantasy of. And
Mhm.
when I started to drop down into my body, it's like, oh gosh, the PR about this relationship or this situation is, oh, isn't this rosy and fun? But it's actually really kind of dysfunctional and harsh. And our eyes are open to that, and we can start to see those things. And when we see them, we can build the capacity to address them or to say, no, thank you. This container, I've tried my best to up the game of the container we have here, but it takes two or three or five. And so, I give up. I can't be in a container where people are being harmed or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're born into a culture of containment that is set up on. I just had this thought the other day, like um, when certain segment of the population is educated to the level and position of being able to make money on other people's debt, they are going to devise a system to uh, amass as much debt as possible through other people to make money on it. So consumerism, in a
Yeah.
big way, is part of the containment of culture and seems normal. And go shopping, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but um, when there's
Yeah.
certain systems feeding off that and promoting more debt, and then you're suffering because of it, then that is kind of where we're being victimized, but we don't even realize we're being victimized, or we can sense that we are, but we don't know by what.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it seems like our own behavior, and yet we've been programmed and conditioned from the time we were tiny to want, to grasp, to,
Yeah.
you know,
And that whole thing, that whole, you know, when I once had a partner who we moved into a new house and we both had kind of large collections of art. And it was going to be, this was the first house we were going to share together. And it was going to be whose art goes up on the wall, how much and where, how many. And so we went, I said, let's go super slowly. Let's just go super slowly so that we can digest, because each of us is going to have a sacrifice. There
mhm,
aren't enough there's not enough wall space for all of our favorite art. There just isn't. So you get a piece and I get a piece, and then we get to talk about where it goes and why and how that. And we were both kind of artsy artists, aesthetic mattered to both of us. And I remember at one point, the art was all up on the walls, and he was expressing that clearly I had way more pieces up. I I was hogging everything. He was being cheated or whatever. And I said, honey, let's go count them. And he had twice as many pieces as I had. And I had let him have more because I knew it really mattered to him. But he still felt deprived and assumed I was doing it to him when it was just a matter of a kind of a hungry ghost in there, a kind of a left out one, an assumption that he would be taken advantage of or something like this. But the number was actually so the opposite of what the situation was. And this is the same with the hungry ghosts that we carry, that if we have a frozen place that feels like not enough, not enough, or we have a place in ourselves that needs distraction, 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 more and more distraction because it hurts or whatever, we put a whole bunch of us like that on the planet and we gobble up the planet
mhm.
because we have an early place that needs to be addressed so we can heal it. And then just breath and a little food is enough because we're in a state of gratitude and grace for even being alive. But we're so wounded. And bless our hearts, the best thing we know how to do sometimes is retail therapy.
Yeah,
At
yeah.
the same time, it's not sustainable to have a bunch of young frozen babies running around feeling like they need to eat everything in the barn or they're going to die
Mhm,
because there's only a finite amount in the barn.
yeah.
And this is why s- healing, psychological healing is so spiritual. Psychological healing, when done properly and not done in some like kind of fake way or some like whipping myself to be different, when we are given spaces to become aware of what lives below the deck, and we're given spaces to digest the fuels and the experience that drive that stuff, and we settle into simple presence and gratitude, the expression of that is not only harmony and love and respect and all that, it's also not gobbling the barn down and having an awareness that there's more than just me, me, me. But when we're stuck in a wounded place and we're at the age of 1 or 2, that developmental phase is all about me, me, me. It's absolutely righteous to be me, me, me at the age of 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But in grown bodies that are amassing things and denying other bodies, there isn't a kindergarten in the country that would allow a couple big boys or big girls or big ones to have all the stuff while the other ones went hungry.
Right.
There isn't a kindergarten in the world
Right.
that would be all right with that. No kindergarten teacher would ever let that fly,
Right.
right? That's because we're in a
Mhm.
contained space where there's somebody who is selflessly serving the children to keep it like that. My daughter once said, Mama, I think there should be like a president of the world who thinks well about everyone. I was like, yeah, that's called a
That's
mom
the idea. Yeah,
or a dad, it's called like like wow, we have been hoodwinked. We all want to be, well, we don't all want to be, but we're conditioned to want to be one of the big boys with all the things to compensate for our deep loss of connection to source.
exactly. Thank you for that riff. That was beautiful and well said. And I'm glad we're landing there as we come into speaking about your work because it
Ah,
tails right into this wonderful expansion of your offering through a restructuring of your container online and a reorganization. I'd love to give you a moment to speak about it and
thank you. That's
letting
really,
people
really
in.
sweet. That's really sweet. Well, my work is the best expression I know how to create of a container that is permeated by love, consciousness for the awakening and full embodiment and healing of human beings. And I, the amount of devotion I have for the holy and for humans, for creatures, for the holy's body called the earth and the people and the creatures and all of it, the amount of devotion I have to serve the well-being and the beauty of that has me, um, while I rest, I rest deeply. I'm rested. I'm good. But there's something in me that's so devoted to doing everything I can to make, first of all, the most beautiful container, and then for it to work for as many people as it can serve. And so, yeah, containers so important for me. And you could imagine, I mean, I look at every single aspect, what I charge, what's on the website, what are our guidelines, who's involved, uh, what do our little ads say out in the world to let people know that we're moving from clarity, everything is integrous, it really matters to me. And the things that are outside my consciousness, I can't run through that kind of resonator of what's clear. So this is big, the shift is big, and what it is moving from I hold spaces, 2 hour spaces, day-long spaces, retreat spaces, some in person, extended 8-month courses that have multiple containers in them, multiple classes, small groups, partner practice, other people offering private sessions. It's a big thing. And up till now, we've run 3 8-month courses simultaneously, plus a 30-day course twice a year. But there was only the course. There wasn't holding what we might call the school or the whole. There wasn't, I couldn't put my arms around, and in between the courses, it was like, oh, okay, see you next course.
Yeah,
While we're in the courses, we have access to each other. People have access to the teachings. They have access to me. They have access to a forum. They have access to all these things. And then summertime course over, beep. And I always wanted to have some kind of a hub, some kind of a place. I didn't know exactly what it looked like. Well, there's software platforms that help you do that. And so we're evaluating which one we want to use so that people can gather in this hub that is this work, people who are called and interested, and sort of participate at different levels and moving from a course centric model, which we will still have courses, but to a membership centric model where you are, let's say, a free member and you get certain things free. I do free smoothies. We have Friends of Jeannie, Zandi on Facebook where I post all the time. Anyone could read those. That's going to be in this little world. Um, I write love letters that come to people, and those are free. So there'll be a free level and then a basic level where people can have access to different themed calls. And then the committed student level where people are like, I'm about this. I want to study with you. I want to immerse myself. I want to grow in my leadership. I want to grow in my capacity to live and extend love and give my gift. Um, and that kind of engagement, and a sense that this is ours. This is ours, and that we can contribute to it through how we enter it. We can care for it. We can care for each other through caring for the container. We can take turns hosting a meditation for anyone who wants to come to a silent meditation every week because we long to give our hearts, and this is a way that we can. And so it's super exciting because I think there'll be a lot more options than we've had now. Sometimes people will do a course just because they want to stay connected.
Yeah.
Um, and now we're going to have a way to stay connected. And then if you want to do a course, you can do a course in addition, but it's in addition to this kind of basic involvement, partner practice, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to add as many bells and whistles as we can possibly do. And right now we're just kind of, will the software, this is part of container, right? You choose a kind of a software for something like this. It will let you do certain things and not let you do other things.
Right.
And so some of the pieces I have, like, I don't know, probably 8 pieces of software that go into my container now. And this one is going to potentially replace a few of those, but
Mhm.
will it do the things I become accustomed to doing? And will we have to change things? And that's a big deal
Well, you can
because,
always write to the programmers and request things.
well, yeah, but I've been a software manager and I know how that goes.
Well, it doesn't hurt to, for them to hear from their client base or potential
Yeah,
client base about some of the things you see in other competitive softwares that you like that they don't have. They like to hear
yeah.
those.
Yeah, no, I know they do. It takes a while generally to implement them. But anyway, we'll get the best thing we know how to do. But it's
Yeah.
it's a huge multi-headed container, but so exciting to feel like this can serve the needs of lots of people and not put me in my grave.
Well, it's going to serve the need of expanding the reach of the container, right? And automating it in a way that it doesn't demand, I mean, it's going to demand a lot of you up front, but hopefully it's being designed with the intention that it will free you up over time, that it won't be as much effort on your part because the structure itself will take care of a lot of the things that you're having to do manually. Or I mean, that would be my intention if I was anything in the future, is to free myself up.
Yeah. Well,
Or,
I will probably be doing the same amount of stuff, but the structure will be such that we maximize all of the other available. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like, um, it's restructuring it in a way that people will have more, and I hopefully won't be doing any more. And
yes, that's the idea. That's what
I'm
I'm
making
getting
stone soup.
at. Well,
Yeah,
it's
but
really good.
thank you for mentioning that and asking
Yeah,
about
I'm
it because
super
it's a really
excited.
big deal right now for me and all about
Yeah.
container, container, container.
Yes, yes, and perfect timing. I think this is what, probably a little ahead of time, like you're kind of maybe energetically feeling the swell of more people seeking what you have, and your um, inspiration and motivation to make it easier for people to enter is in preparation for that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
structure is getting expanded because the demand is coming, and you're setting yourself up to be ready for it, as you always have been, a little bit on that leading edge in awareness of what humanity's needing, and community is a huge part of regulating our nervous system.
Yeah, we need, if we're going to be going through spiritual transformation, most of us need support, company, inspiration, resources. It's like, and to create, it's so fun. Honestly, when someone who reads an article I've written about the Dark Knight, or reads an article I've written about, women's conditioning or men's conditioning or whatever, and they're in China, they're in Egypt, they're in Europe, and they may be in a community where there's no one who's spiritually seeking in the way that they are. There's no sangha.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of the online thing, is that we create sangha, and you can be bedridden and be in our sangha. You don't have to drive.
Yeah.
And we do everything we can to make it possible for the people for whom the work there, we do everything we can to help people be involved. And we have some people, we've had people through our programs who've come into our program, gotten pregnant, had their baby at the end of the course. We've had people, at least four now, come in with some kind of terminal illness, and in the program or shortly after pass as they're in the program. There's this sense of collective humanity,
Mm.
kind of being together to open, to deepen, to be more and more sane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
it's
very inclusive, and thank you for creating that. And you've been building for this for years and years of all your dedication and service. So appreciate you.
thank you. Thank you, Cyndi. It's always so fun to chat and cross-pollinate together, because we have different flavors, and you know, you end up activating little brain pathways in me, and I feel like I'm doing the same with you. We're like,
Yeah, same,
yeah,
but different.
yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you for being here, Jeannie. Thank you, everyone,
Thank you.
for
Thank you,
tuning in
everyone who's
and
listening.
listening to the end. Until next time, whenever that is, it'll be Jeannie and I have another talk on the calendar. I don't remember when it is, but we'll find another interesting topic and be back
For sure.
then.
Yay. Yay, yay. Mwah. Love.